Good morning and welcome. Ooh, that'll get us going. Thank you for being here this morning. It's time for us to begin our Bible class hour. And I want to welcome visitors that are with us today. We have a special guest speaker for our class this morning. So we welcome young people into the class this morning, all the adult classes together. Our speaker today is Keith Kasarjan. Keith and his wife Kim. Kim's with him today. We're glad that she could come. Keith and Kim live near Montgomery, Alabama, in Prattville, Alabama. But Keith travels throughout the world. And several of you know Keith. We've supported him for some time. If you've not met him or not heard about his work, then really glad that you're here for this session, where he'll be talking about the work he does for Bear Valley International, where Keith is directing, coordinating schools throughout the world who are training preachers to preach in their native languages. And we, for some time, have thought that that's a very worthwhile way to spread the gospel throughout the world. And we're very thankful to be able to have fellowship and partnership with Keith in doing this work. And we appreciate him coming and talking about the work so that we can be current and know what is happening with those schools. And then Keith will also be preaching for us during the worship hour, and we look forward to that as well. Keith?
Good morning. I didn't really expect a lot of enthusiasm back. Still a little early. If you went to the game last night, it's extra early for those of us who didn't get in bed till 1 a.m. It's good to be with you this morning. I'm always glad to be back at North Lexington. Have appreciated your partnership for many years now. And it's always good to be here anyway, but to be able to tell you about what's been going on in the last year that you've been a part of is always exciting as well. And so I'm happy to have the opportunity to share that with you. And we have weekly or monthly updates that if you would like to know things more regularly, you can just get on my email list, and I'll have my email up at the end of the hour, and you can just email me and say, hey, put me on that list. It's just about once a month. And so let me just share with you what's been going on with the Bear Valley International Schools. Just for a short history, Bear Valley the Bear Valley School of Preaching was started by the Bear Valley Church of Christ in Denver, Colorado in 1965. And still exists, still doing a great job training preachers on that side of the country. But in 1997, the idea was born to use the same model to train preachers, but where they are. There has been a long history of bringing someone from somewhere else to here, to the U.S., to train and maybe go to school somewhere. And that's had mixed results over the years. We thought, what if we just take the model there? Not only can we train more preachers, but we can do it at a lot less cost. And so that's how the idea came about. And we've been doing it now since 1997. I've been involved since 1999. Just give you a little bit of some statistics. I like statistics, and I like maps. And you either like those things or you don't like those things. If you don't like those things, bear with me. I've got some pictures of people. People that don't like maps like pictures of people. People that, so I got something for everybody. We'll get there in just a second. But the stats really do tell us where we are, where we're going, and so we keep up with these statistics every year. I'll just share with you. So this is basically one decade. 14 through 23 is 10 years. You can see that the number of schools has gone up by a few multiples in those 10 years. This is the number one question, well, probably the number one question. Where are you going next? That's the number one question I get. And I'm like, I just got home. It sounds like you want me to leave again. But the second most common question is, how many schools are there? Well, At the end of last year, there were 62. And I don't know how to math it, but that's what, that's about 4 times as many in 10 years. At the end, by next month, let me say it this way, next month, school number 70 will begin. And we'll talk about some of the new ones in just a few minutes. Those schools are in 31 countries. That's about to grow as well. I think 33 countries by the time we reach next month. And this is, to me, this is actually the second most important metric that we keep up with is how many students are there, because the number of schools doesn't necessarily equal the number of preachers being trained, and teachers and that kind of thing. And so last year was the first year was a record enrollment around the world. The year before was the first year we passed 1,000 enrollment. That was quite a benchmark, and so to move up to 1,100, and I know we'll be in excess of that this year. We will figure those numbers up in December, but we will be well in excess of that. For example, one of the schools that began last year had too many students for one location. The day they began, they had too many students. We try to keep the numbers no more than 20, 25 students for the academic environment. And they had too many on day one. So I told them they had to find a second location, so they did. So they had 2 locations. And then they identified a third area, and when they started that a few months ago, they began with more than 30 students in that location. So the numbers are certainly growing. It's something that a lot of people want to participate in. And so the number of students continues to grow. Here's the most important statistic that we keep up with, and that is what the students are doing to reach the lost. And these numbers are only from the students who are currently enrolled. It's just too big of a job to track what the graduates are doing. Now, some of the local schools do that. They keep up with what their graduates have done. This is just the students who are currently enrolled. So last year they baptized over 4,300 souls while they were in school. And so what that means, in the last 5 years, these students have baptized more than 17,000 souls while they are enrolled in school. So they don't have to wait until they graduate to be soul winners. In fact, a lot of them were already soul winners, and that's why they wanted to come to school so they could become even more effective. All right, so let's talk about some of the new schools that have come along since I was with you last year. This is not exactly a new school now. I believe it began early last year, but I wanted to highlight it because it's in a place called Mundu, Chad. The country of Chad is predominantly Muslim and also French speaking. And those are 2 dynamics that often the church hasn't really done anything with. We prefer English, right? And some people are okay with Spanish, but when it comes to something else, we sometimes shy away from that. And also Islamic can be a little bit scary for some, but it really doesn't need to be. And so we had an opportunity to start a school in the country of Chad, and it's in the city of Mundu. Just north of there, you can see the capital is N'Djamena. Now, that looks pretty short on the map. It's not really close at all. It's about 300 miles from N'Djamena to Mundu, and the road is so bad it took 9 hours. 9 hours to go 300 miles. And but they are doing well there. In fact, the first month the school was open, they converted one of the chief imams in the city of Mundu. These are some of the students outside. This is not a new school, but I wanted to share this story with you because it's really cool. This is Lilongwe, Malawi. Malawi is this really long, narrow country that's landlocked in southern Africa. And there was this idea. So there's a Bear Valley, Denver graduate who's been a missionary in Lilongwe for, I'd say, almost 10 years now. And he had this idea pre-COVID What if we had a school that was only for families? Because some of our students have to weigh this dilemma of, do I leave my family and go to school? And many do, but then many don't because they just can't do that. And then some do, and about 3 weeks later, Mama calls and says, Mama's not happy, you need to come home. And so he does, and he should. So what if we had a school only for families, where the men go through the full-time preacher training program, there's a truncated ladies program, and the children just all go to public school together and all live there on campus together. I said, well, let's give it a shot. So the Creve Hall congregation in Nashville, who sponsors the work there, they partnered with us, and they still do, to make this happen. This was the graduating class. There's 7 families represented there. You might think that's a lot of people for only 7 families, but that's kind of the average. The birth rate for the average African woman is 6. And so you're talking about a lot of souls. And it went really, really well. And I wanted to share this with you. You have to understand, to appreciate this, ladies, American ladies, you may feel like American men are not in touch with their emotions. You may have thought that a time or two. If you have ever thought that about an American man, you have no idea until you meet an African man, because he is zero in touch with his emotions. It's just a cultural thing. It's not right or wrong or anything. It's just a cultural thing. So what I'm about to tell you is what the missionary told me is the most emotional thing he's ever heard an African man tell him. And it was on the day of graduation. And he said to Dale, you, talking about not only them, but the school, you have left footprints in our heart that will last our lifetime. And that's what it's all about. And those families went back to where they have come from. And I was just in contact with him last week, and they have 6 more families coming in to begin their 2-year program. And so it's really made a difference. It's changed these families, because while they're there, they get to encourage each other and learn. And these families are going back different than they were when they came. So that's another success story. This is a new school that has just begun last month in August in Kaduna, Nigeria. In Nigeria, you have a country, you see the map. Kaduna is there. This is the capital of Abuja. And somewhere right about here, if you take Abuja and you go just west to east, there's an imaginary line there that is above it. North of that is predominantly Muslim. South of that is not. And Kaduna is firmly in the Muslim side of things. And this city is actually divided. When I was in that city a few months ago, they said, you're now in the Muslim part. And it was 90-something% Muslim. But as soon as we crossed the river, the percentages went down. And so even that city is divided. But the church is doing well there. They asked us if there could be a school there. Obviously, we had to do some due diligence regarding the safety of the situation there. Decided it was certainly worth looking at, and I got there and was just really, really impressed with the people I met there, the teachers. These are all local teachers. Every school uses local teachers. The vast majority of all the courses are taught by local men. And this was a weekday. I want to say this was like a Tuesday morning. And I got there, and there was a congregational meeting, basically, all waiting for me to be there in such excitement. We began that school last month, and they have 21 students. There's another school that's going to begin this month. No, I think it began this month in Lomé, Togo. Togo is in West Africa. The country of Togo borders the country of Ghana. Lomé is the biggest city in that country, and they have been wanting a school there for some time. This school and the one in Kaduna are what we call extended schools. They meet only on Saturdays. This allows the students to keep their jobs, not leave their families, Many of these guys are already preaching somewhere, and they can't be full-time students because they have jobs, they have families. Usually many of them have academic credentials in some career field. And so it's not a situation at all where they can be a full-time student. But when they get an opportunity to be able to learn the same thing, have the same program, same curriculum, prepare in the same way for something they're already doing, preaching maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, then they jump at that opportunity. So this is Lomé, Togo. This is in the country of India, where by the way, you may know this, speaking of statistics, the country of India sometime last year became the most populous country in the world. And the number of souls in that country is mind-boggling. Just to give you an idea, you would need to take every city in the U.S. So take L.A., New York, Chicago, Lexington, every city in the U.S., multiply the population by 4 to get India. The U.S. is the 3rd most populous country in the world, and India's population is more than 4 times that of ours. There are a lot of souls in this country. This is the city of Chennai. I don't know, it's knowable, but I don't off the top of my head remember now just how many cities in India are more than 5 million people. Chennai is around 11 million, and that's just in the city. The surrounding area would be many, many more millions than that. In the city of Chennai, it was requested. We've been working on this project probably close to 2 years now, and we decided to begin a school here in this part of the area. And these are the guy sitting to my right in the blue shirt. He's the director, and that's his son, who's going to be one of the teachers. They've both been to schools, and there's other teachers as well. Well, about a month ago, they had the entrance exam for students with applications. So you apply, fill out the application. A number of things have to be in order. If you are a student who is eligible to apply, then you have to take an entrance exam. It's 100 questions, basic Bible knowledge. You have to make at least a 70 on that. And they had 33 that had the application and passed the entrance exam. And so they turned 13 of them away. And so he sends us the message, we've accepted 20, based on our saying 20 is a good number. And I said, what about the other 13? He said, we don't have space for them. And I said, well, where are they from? And what we found out was 11 of them. So so you see Chennai over there on the coast, this place called Arakanam. And I've been there by train. It's about, from that city back to where the other school is going to be meeting, between a train and then public transportation takes an hour and a half. There were 11 applicants who are ready to do 3 hours of transportation every week, in addition to 8 hours in a classroom, to be able to go to school there. So I said, hey, what if we think about a school there as well? And so that has come together just literally in the last few weeks. The assistant director is named Mark Reynolds. He was just there. He just got back from India yesterday. And those 2 schools, well, this one began, the one in Chennai began a week ago yesterday. And then the other one, the new one, the Arakanam, will begin next month. So that'll give them time to get everything going. So Mark met with them. They've already have 33 students total for these 2 schools, 33. And more have expressed interest just since then, because now that the new location is a possibility, there are going to be some others who will want to apply as well. So exciting stuff that it's a pretty good problem to have to figure out how to accommodate more people than we were expecting. All right, this is a place called Bor, South Sudan. South Sudan is one of the newest countries in the world, it broke away from Sudan. They had a civil war. They'd had problems all along. Sudan is predominantly Muslim. The region that is now known as South Sudan is predominantly not. That was always a source of the conflict, or part of it. There were other issues as well. Even since South Sudan broke away, they've had their own civil war, and they have their own problems. And it's an area of the world that's had a lot of problems. You can see it's bordered by several other African countries. I went there in February for the survey trip. The protocol calls for, after all the due diligence and vetting and all of that, if it appears that this is a good possibility, a survey trip needs to be made. And I did that back in February, I believe. It was kind of nice. In February, when it's cold at home, it was 102 degrees in South Sudan. So it was almost a bit of for me, it was almost a bit of a relief. And believe it or not, 102 degrees, everything is done outside. Our meetings were outside, we ate outside, you do everything outside, because it's cooler outside than it is inside, though you don't want to go inside until you have to. But I was there, and they were super impressed with these guys. By the way, the Dinka tribe, you can Google Dinkas if you're not familiar with the Dinka tribe. They're the tallest people in the world. And you can see, I'm not tall, but I'm sort of maybe average. And these guys make me look like I'm short. And the tallest people in the world are South Sudanese. It was not uncommon for me to see people who had to duck their head when they went through a doorway. Very, very fascinating to see so many tall people. And it's a troubled area. I can tell you this now. Kim's here today. I did not tell her this before I left, but the State Department says don't go to South Sudan. There are 19 countries in the world rated as level 4. Level 4 is don't go. Afghanistan, North Korea, South Sudan. The State Department says don't go. If you do, update your will and leave DNA samples for your family. And that part I just left out until I got home, and everything was just fine. It really was not nothing out of the ordinary that I observed. So we're going to begin that school in the city of Bor. The capital is Juba. Bor is about a 4-hour drive north. These guys are from that city, and they're recruiting students from all over South Sudan and possibly even Ethiopia as well. We expect that school to begin next month. Bloemfontein, South Africa. This is another school that just began this month. In fact, it began two weeks ago. And this is the first Bear Valley school in South Africa. So that number of 31 countries is actually now 32, and South Sudan will make 33. And South Sudan also will be the 70th school to begin. So this is an extended school, and these guys are really, really happy about the opportunity to have a school there in their city. This is, you see this country of Lesotho. It's a country within a country, and the guys from Lesotho, we've had a school in Lesotho for several years. In fact, they had their first graduation this year. The teachers and faculty and all that are going to be the ones directing and teaching in the school in Bloemfontein. So it's good to have guys who are already experienced doing this. No way, and it's pronounced that way, no way. And no way is out in the middle of nowhere. It is a part of a big mission. Mission started in 1939. Members of the church started it and lived there for a long time. Men like Loy Mitchell. Some of you may have known the name Stan Mitchell from Freed Hardeman. Stan was the son of Loy. Long-time missionaries in Zimbabwe. They lived there for a time. There had been a school of preaching there up until the 70s. The culture shifted, and those missionaries, for their safety, needed to move to the city of Mutare. They reestablished a school there, which still is in existence today. But it's left nothing there, and they have been asking for a school there. And we already have 2 schools in Zimbabwe anyway. And so those guys that are already experienced and qualified, they're going to be helping to make this happen. The mission was very, very happy to have us come. The mission has a hospital, and a clinic and a primary school, secondary school, farm. It's a big operation. The chief doctor in the hospital is already one of the students in the school. He's also an elder in a congregation and preaches, just like every elder in just about anywhere else in the world preaches as well. It's just they can't imagine an elder that doesn't preach. And so he was already an elder, already a preacher, and he really wants to learn more. And so he and the others are really happy about this opportunity. Jarapa, Ghana. This is another area that is predominantly Muslim. You can see almost in the middle of that picture of the city called Tamale. Tamale is a city of 500,000 that is 95% Muslim. And we have operated a school of preaching there for years and years and years, more than a decade at least, and with no problems. And the school, or the city of Jarapa, you can see is to the north and west of Tamale, so further into predominantly Islamic. In fact, it borders the country of Burkina Faso. Anybody ever been to Ouagadougou? Anybody? Ouagadougou? Ouagadougou is the biggest city in Burkina Faso. It is also predominantly Muslim. There's been some troubles there, but you know, when you're local and you're not a foreigner, you don't really run as the kind of risk that we would. So this is going to be an extended school. The guys that are teaching there, some of them graduated from our school in Tamale and from other places as well. That school is starting this month as well. And then here's another one. Just one more I'll tell you about. I'd love to tell you everything, but we don't have time, and you may not even want to know everything. But this is in Freetown, Sierra Leone. This is Mark Reynolds. He's the assistant director of international studies, and he is the one who's been heading up this project. He's learning more and more how to start new schools, and that's been helpful to me. And he was in Freetown, Sierra Leone a few months ago, teaching in our school that's farther inland in a place called Kenema. But Freetown is the capital of Sierra Leone, the biggest city, and they don't have a school of preaching anywhere in that city. And so they've been asking for some time for us to start a school there. We believe it's going to happen soon. And I have to tell you, Freetown is, I think that Freetown, parts of Freetown, are the poorest place that I've ever seen in my life. Poverty doesn't describe it. And there really is no way to describe it. And, I'm overwhelmed at even trying to describe to you how indescribable it is. When I was in Kenema, or when I was in Sierra Leone a few months ago, or maybe it was last year, it was in November. And we were driving from Freetown to our school down in Kenema. It was early in the morning, it was in the darkness, and I may have told you this last year, I think maybe I did. We hit something. I thought we'd blown a tire, and it woke me up because it was 4:30 in the morning, and we'd actually hit an animal. And I said, oh, okay, good. I was afraid we'd blown a tire. And then we started backing up. I said, what are we doing? He said, we're going to go try to find it. And I said, why? He said, so we can eat it. And I thought he was joking. It was the kind of joke I would say. And I half chuckled, and then I realized he wasn't. And we found the animal, and we threw him in called a bush cat, and we put him in the trunk, and we went back, and that animal entered the ministry that day. And as we drove away with a dead animal in our trunk, I thought, man, I've got it made. I've got it made. Well, those are a number of new schools that have started or are about to start throughout the world to train more preachers and teachers and church leaders. And the one thing that hasn't been represented so far is the timeline of these schools. But you may have noted, may have picked up on that there's going to be a number that either started last month, this month, or next month. And that is for a reason, because we reached a point back in the spring when we didn't have any more funding for schools, no more funding. It was, we had what we needed. We could maintain what was already going on, and we had new school possibilities stacking up in the pipeline where we were still doing the research and due diligence, but we had no funding for any of them. A friend of mine said, hey, how much would it take to endow an extended school? And by that we mean a lump sum that produces returns on a monthly basis, and those returns fund that school perpetually without ever getting into the principal. So we figured it up, and we came up with a number, and we let people know that they could do this, that they could endow a school in memory of someone or in honor of someone, or just because they wanted to. So that campaign began last month, and it's gone well, and that has allowed us to then resume. One man who gave, I called him and said, hey, I just want to let you know, you're already starting a school. He was over the moon to think of the impact that he's going to be able to have, and for all of eternity. And I said, just have to let you know, it usually takes longer than this, but we had this possibility sitting here, ready to go, and the only thing we were lacking was funding. And that's been the case with almost every one of the schools I've told you about today. So as a part of the campaign, I recorded a video, and I want to share that with you today. Have you ever had to watch yourself on video? Anybody ever had to do that? It's painful, but I'm willing to endure that struggle to be able to share this video with you. And then when it finishes, we'll wrap up, and I'll take time for questions that you might have.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keith Kasarjan, and I'm the Director of International Studies for the Bear Valley Bible Institute in Denver, Colorado. Hello, everyone. My name is Keith Kasarjan, and I'm the Director of International Studies for the Bear Valley Bible Institute in Denver, Colorado. At Bear Valley, we've been training preachers since 1965 and training preachers internationally since 1997. We've taken the idea of taking the mission and the model of training preachers in Denver to other parts of the world, to train men to preach where they are, to share the gospel with their own people and their own culture, and it has been incredibly successful. And today I want to share with you something that we discovered a few years ago that is really an exciting opportunity. We discovered a niche that really we weren't sure was as big as it turns out it is. And that is to train those who are already preaching and teaching or who want to be, but who cannot be full-time students. The reality is most people cannot be full-time students. Most people already have a job or a family, and maybe they have an education in some other career field, but they love the church, and they're already helping with preaching and teaching in their home congregations, and they want the same education. And when they get an opportunity to receive the same education as the full-time students, they absolutely take advantage of it. And it has been exciting to see the growth that has come about. I want to share with you today just a little bit of what's going on in just a few of the Bear Valley International schools. They are now around the world. For example, there's a new partnership with a school in Brazil. And not only is this exciting because they're training preachers for the 6th most populous country in the world, but they're also translating the material into Portuguese as they go along. And that's going to allow the material to be used not only in other places in Brazil, but in other parts of the world where they speak Portuguese. There's the school in Nairobi, Kenya. They just had a graduation and sent out a batch of graduates and took in some more students as well. Abuja, Nigeria, this is the capital of Nigeria, the 5th most populous country in the world. This is a city that has more than 50 congregations. And so while they're not lacking for congregations, they are lacking for preachers. And so we are serving to fill that need in that city, but again, by training people who already have jobs and families and could never be a full-time student. We're training preachers in Yangon, Myanmar, for that country in Southeast Asia, and also in Taraba State, Nigeria. When I visited this school, they told me, and this is their quote, this school has revitalized many congregations in this area because now they have preachers. And so this school sends out preachers to various congregations every weekend, and that has revitalized churches in that area. And then one more, just a brief summary of what's going on. Benin City, Nigeria. This is a school that has been going so well. You can see this is the matriculation ceremony. You can see how many students there are. When I was visiting there recently, one of the students said, look, most of us have been to Bible schools, but we have never received this kind of education. This level has changed us and the churches that we are preaching and teaching in. And that's really what it's all about. We're trying to raise the bar so that more people can hear the gospel and more people can be in heaven. Just last year, these extended schools number now 35. So there are many of them. They are located in 13 different countries. And they have now a total enrollment of 673 students. And those students, while they were in school and full-time jobs and families like that, last year alone, they baptized 856 souls. So you can see there's a lot of good going on in these extended schools. Not only are they not able to go full-time schools, doing this method and this model allows them to assimilate the knowledge they gain much faster, because maybe they take a course this month and that becomes their preaching material or their teaching material for the church in the next week or two or month or two. Also, one of the fringe benefits of this is they're never going to get accustomed to receiving support. They don't need it. They have jobs and families, and because they've never gotten it, they're never going to expect it. Whereas some will get it and then not want to ever give it up. So it's a great tool for training preachers and teachers and ultimately for getting souls to heaven. So here's what I want to share with you today. We are launching a special campaign to raise the funding for these schools. These schools operate on a very minimal budget because there is no residential component involved. And so we're able to do more good for fewer dollars. And what we want to tell you about is the opportunity that you can have to endow one of these schools from now until Jesus comes back for a relatively small amount of money. These can be memorial endowments. These can be in honor of. This can be a congregation, and the endowment will be named after that congregation or the person or whomever it is. So basically, for every $30,000, we can operate one of these schools from now until Jesus comes back. And that is incredibly exciting. And so we want to let you know about this opportunity, and we want you to partner with us to help train preachers around the world, but especially those who are already serving but could never be full-time students, but need and desire the same level of education. So would you help us to do that? Please contact us. I can be available for more answers and questions and whatever you need to know. So again, thank you for listening to this. Thank you for caring about souls. And we hope that you will partner with us to train even more preachers and teachers around the world. God bless.
All right, so hope you were able to endure that video. I just didn't look. I just averted my eyes. But that campaign has allowed us to move forward with some new schools that we were ready to begin but had not been able to begin. So it's been a real blessing, and of course there are going to be many more opportunities to do the same. So if you or someone you know would be interested in doing that, then I would certainly love to talk to you about it. It is a great model, and one of the things that we've learned in these extended schools is the average student is more mature. Many of them have been to college, they have jobs, they have families, they're just a lot more mature than your average 20 or 22-year-old who are the ones who are able to go full-time. And so let me leave. So here's the email address, and again, there's the website. And every year it seems like I see that and I realize I need to capitalize the W, the T, and the P so that it doesn't look like wetrainpreachers.com. It is wetrainpreachers.com. And there's my email address. If you have a question, if you want to be added to the monthly mailing list, in fact, you can add yourself to the monthly mailing list this morning on my phone if you would like to do that as well. So let me just give you a minute here. We stop at what, quarter after? Is that probably right? Quarter after? Anybody have a question that something made you think, I wonder about, or if, or maybe just an observation? This is your chance. Usually you need one person to start, and then everybody else will feel okay. Oh, well, here we go. Yeah, that's a great question. Have we ever had to close a school? And the answer is yes. And we're free to do that. We're not about running up the numbers. If we really wanted to have a bunch of schools, we could do that, and we would never close one. We have broken partnerships for a variety of reasons, one of them being lack of communication. We require monthly reports. People need to know, they want to know, and they have a right to know what's going on. And so we've broken partnerships for that reason. There's been a couple of schools where exactly the scenario you painted came to fruition, where just that area, the church culture was not strong enough and big enough to consistently produce high quality students. And so we currently have one that's on sabbatical, one that's closing, that just closed. It's in the South Pacific, and COVID really wreaked havoc on the immigration abilities to come to that school. And so, yes, there's been a number of times that's been the case, and for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, we look at it as we can. You start talking about 17,000 in 5 years. Our primary focus is training preachers. But one question is how many of the students are still preaching? And that's also a hard thing to track because of just the logistics of it. One particular school that I know keeps track of that themselves has graduated, I want to say 156 have graduated over the past few years, and according to their statistics, it's 90-something% are currently actively preaching. In fact, there's so few that aren't, they know them by name. Oh, so-and-so, he fell away, so-and-so died, that kind of thing. And so typically, by the time they've invested this amount of time in their life and education, that they'll typically will stick with it. And as far as the conversions, I wasn't involved in these conversions. These are just people telling me what they have done. But my speculation, these are different regions of the world, but because of the regions where they are, and the fact that the culture lends itself to being spiritual, the retention rate, as we would call it, is pretty high. We live in a culture that's not that way. And so we might convert somebody, and then the culture is pulling them, just constantly pulling them every day. But they're in a culture where it's normal to be religious. It's normal to be going to church. There's a lot of places where I go on Sunday morning. Typically the Sunday mornings, the roads are what? Here, empty. Sunday mornings in a lot of places, the road not full of cars, because most people don't have cars, but there are people everywhere. and they're dressed in their best clothes, and they're carrying their Bible, and they're going to church somewhere. And so you don't have the cultural pull to pull people back into the world that we experience. All right, maybe one more? All right, that it? All right. Well, again, thank you. Thank you for your partnership. You guys have been with me from day one, and I appreciate you so much.